There's a lot of traction in this game, which is something obviously a lot of these games seem to miss. It has more traction than Mxgp 2020. Yes, it has a little bit of the slip again, but definitely not as much as a lot of the other Mxgp games. One of my favorite things about this game is how much the clutch actually affects the bike. Whenever you tap it coming out of corners, you get a nice boost. And also if you feather the clutch and the gas in some of the inside and middle berms, you get a nice flow going through it and you slingshot out of it like a motherfucker. I really appreciate how instead of just having inside berms, they added some middle berms and even some outside ones, so it makes the tracks a lot more enjoyable, gives it more lines. And for the national tracks, the inside and middle berms work so much better than in the Supercross games. Don't know why they're trying to put that in Supercross 6. It's a lazy way of saying you're not getting track deformation. So this game launched with no terrain deformation. They did add it in like a couple months into the game, but I don't know if I enjoy it too much. It makes the track a tiny bit more rough as the race goes on. You notice it more on a track like Mantova. You can't really hook into any ruts that it might build. You basically just push wide on the corners because it's just a bunch of little bumps being formed. I honestly would prefer if they never added this into the game. I think it makes it slightly worse, but I guess it's better than nothing, I guess. This game also has a nice speed to it. I find a lot of the other Mxgp games just feel way too slow, especially the first few games. It just has the speed perfectly, I think. Going over rollers feels sexy. Railing some berms feels nice in this game. You don't just go flying off the corners. You actually hook into the berms very nicely. The scrubs feel pretty good, especially if you do the scrub glitch. The whips are not really existent. It's mainly an oppo whip, which looks decent, but the scrubs are where the game shines, in my opinion. The one thing I don't enjoy too much about this game is the AI collisions are a bit off. They kind of have a big hitbox around them and they push you around pretty easily. You can kind of take them out sometimes, but often they just take you out or you take yourself out. The tracks are built very well. They have a good amount of roughness to them. They're not very simplistic. They all have different lines, and the scaling feels pretty spot on. I wasn't able to find any multiplayer lobbies because, again, nobody plays these games on the PC. But I did do a video on multiplayer for this game a little over a year ago. Multiplayer was very fun in this game. The servers and the connection was great, and it was a good time. Another eyesore with this game: sometimes when you overjump or case something, your rider gets all out of shape, but it doesn't affect the bike, so you just keep on partying through. It would have been nice if they added like a reflex feature where you push your one stick to the right or left depending on which side of the bike you fall off. I think they missed an opportunity there. The rain looks very, very sexy in this game. Well, I think it's probably the best looking rain in any of the Mxgp games. The track looks very nice and dark. There's a good amount of rain puddles that form in the lines you use. I love the raindrops on the screen. It's a nice touch. And the rain also in front of you, you can notice it. It's a good little detail. But I don't think the tracks get slippery enough. They still have quite a bit of traction, which I guess isn't a terrible thing. But it would be nice if the tracks just got super sloppy and it was very slippery to ride on. It would have made it a bit better. But hey, I'm not complaining too much. The rain's pretty good in this game. And with the AI being decent in this game, you can have some pretty competitive races. For whatever reason, Alessandro Lupino, when they added him into the game, he's the best AI. He always gets first or second. It's a weird thing to point out, but it is what it is. The track editor is the exact same as in Mxgp 2020. It's a decent track editor. They have all the same maps, so they all have elevation to them. But I believe in this game they added a desert map. It's pretty good, but it's not the greatest. So it's a very basic track editor, but it works pretty well with the maps they provided. When this game came out, I fell in love with it instantly. For a little while there, I thought this was the best Mxgp game, but after coming back and playing them all, I think it belongs in the number 2 spot. A lot of people seem to enjoy this game, at least on the videos I make. They seem to really enjoy it. I think this is definitely one of the best Mxgp or milestone games to have been released. It's a whole lot of fun. I've gotten a lot of hours on Mxgp 21, and I'm probably going to keep coming back and playing it every so often. It's a good game. I will defend this game until I die. I enjoy it. I don't think it's the best though. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. Mxgp 21 belongs in the number 2 spot, but if you put it number 1, I wouldn't blame you.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Ah! Yes!
The best Mxgp game to have ever been made is Mxgp 3. This probably did not surprise anybody. This is by far everybody's favorite MXGP game, at least the majority. When this game released, everybody was loving it. There was very few people that were shitting on the game or dislike it, and even to this day, you rarely hear people that dislike this game. It was the first MXGP game to introduce rain, even though it didn't look the greatest compared to now. It was a good little feature. It was the last MXGP game to have Motocross of Nations, and that track was one of the best in the game, so that was definitely a good addition. It had the Riders Cup DLC, which was a very good DLC. It's a very simple kind of Supercross, Arena Cross type track. It's based off of the 2016 Riders Cup that they did with the manufacturers. Sadly, not all the riders are in it, like Ryan Dungey or Marvin Musquin. But hey, it's a nice little DLC. I don't think it's worth like $8 what they were originally charging for it. Something about this game's graphics look very good even to this day. The game is like 5 years old at this point, but something about this game, just the graphics hold up. They look better than some of the newest games. There's a lot of roost and dust coming from the other riders on the track. This was the last and only MXGP game to have a working rut terrain deformation system. It wasn't spectacular, but it was definitely good. You could form up lines, ruts, and if you were to do 5 to 10 lap races, you really noticed it. You could fucking rail some corners, man. Even after doing 2 or 3 laps, you could rail ruts. It was insane. I wish they would have kept this terrain deformation system or these physics and just improved upon them, because pretty much every MXGP or Supercross game after this got slightly worse in a way. MXGP 3 was so good, then the next game to come out after that was MXGP Pro, so it's a drastic change from how good these games were getting, and then all of a sudden they just dropped off a cliff. Kind of hurts my heart because obviously again after this game came out we thought we were in for a good treat for the next few years, but then the games just were not delivering. First person in this game's solid, not spectacular I guess, but it's pretty good. It's pretty easy to get some quick lap times in first person. Also, you have so much traction in this game. You fucking rail corners, you barely slide out. The only time you do is maybe if you're coming into a corner too hot and you lock the front brakes up. The AI is pretty terrible in this game, but on a couple tracks they keep up with you, so that's kind of cool I guess. One of the best things about this game is something I wish they would bring back, is the bike sounds. Each and every bike sound has its own unique sound, and they're all fucking amazing. The Suzuki 250 is probably one of my favorites, but just every bike in this game sounds amazing. I don't know why they scrapped these sounds or didn't even try to ever bring them back. It's a little depressing to think about because these bike sounds were just so good and they hold up to this day. Probably my favorite ever sounding bikes in the game, besides the two strokes of course, though they stink. The compound was free with this game. It came with the game at launch, but it wasn't really too big. It had a Supercross track, which was basic, but I had a lot of fun riding on this track for an hour or two, just putting in laps, mainly because of the track deformation. It was very fun to ride on, but sadly you couldn't do races on these or have the AI on them, so it got a little boring after a while just doing laps by yourself, but it was a nice little track to practice on. Same thing with the national track. It's a good size, doesn't really have a crazy amount of different line options, but it's fast. It's a good design. It gets super rough after like 5 laps just on your own. Overall, the compound is one of my favorites just because the tracks are good and it has terrain deformation. If the compound had a trail design on it, it would probably be the best. This is the only MXGP game I would say is still worth full price. It's that fucking amazing. If you've never played it, just pick it up no matter what the price is. It's a fantastic game, and I think it's going to be the best for a while now because they've stopped making MXGP games. So this will be the best MXGP game for probably a long time. And with the direction the Supercross games are going in, it's not looking good. So yeah, that's my ranking list of all the MXGP games from worst to best. 2019 is definitely the worst. There's no discussion there. But MXGP 3 or 2020 or 2021, those are the top 3 games. I think you could switch those around anyway. I personally love the MXGP games a bit more than the majority of the Supercross games. I just get more hours out of them. They're more fun to me, even though the tracks are pretty much the same every game. There's just something about them that I enjoy, and especially MXGP 3. So let me know what your list is down below. Sorry that this video took a bit too long. It is what it is though, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, take care.